Clarence Thomas was not given, over the course of decades, millions of dollars by the wealthiest people in our country without some expectation that he is going to pay them back. And certainly during his time on the Supreme Court, he has done his level best to do that. But all of that, all of the decisions, all of the cases might be nothing compared to what he's working on now. And we've been given an indication just last week as to what his next big plan could be to transfer conservatively countless trillions of dollars to the wealthiest people in the country. And it has to do with a dissent that he did last week in a tax case. This is Moore v. US.
The video will continue in just a moment, but first I have a message for you. TYT needs your help. Membership is vital to survival, so please go to tyt.com/team and become a member today.
And it's the first sign of a possible plan that would radically change how taxation works in America, potentially all but removing taxes for the wealthiest. And so there's a great write-up in Slate by Mark Joseph Stern that provides some of the details that we're gonna cover. There's also some history that we don't have time to delve into, but broad brush, here's basically what happened in that and what we should take from it. So he says that Thomas's goal and more is to eviscerate the 16th Amendment. That's the amendment that legalized the federal income tax way back in 1913. And as is so often the case, the justice marshals his argument by diminishing a progressive constitutional amendment as some illegitimate affront to the framers' original divinely inspired design. If you're not like a constant follower of the Supreme Court, you may not know that this is a thing that ideologically he does. According to the law, an amendment to the Constitution is the Constitution. That is how it is supposed to be interpreted. But to someone like Thomas, no. The founders were placed there by God. They gave us the actual Constitution. Progressive reformers 100 years ago, they were sullying this. That does not have to be respected, certainly not in the same way that the original text needs to be respected. And that can be very consequential. So how do we get here? So the case last week, conservative attorneys manufactured this case as a preemptive challenge to any potential future wealth tax on affluent Americans' net assets, including personal property. They seized upon an obscure 2017 provision of the Trump-era tax cuts, which are about to lapse next year, that taxed shareholders of US-owned corporations located overseas by collecting money on undistributed income. Okay, so there's no one right now that is proposing a wealth tax that has any chance of actually passing. So they don't even need to get out in front of just that. And for Thomas, he uses this as an effort to push for something way more radical. So those lawyers argued that the tax was unconstitutional under the 16th Amendment for reasons that are wonky but important. They say that Congress can, quote, lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived. The word income, they argued, has a realization requirement, meaning that the money must reach a taxpayer's pockets before the government takes a cut of it. Now, the Supreme Court did not end up ruling on this realization issue, but Thomas, in his dissent, was very angry that they didn't because this is key to him. He thinks that it is incredibly important exactly how the money is generated and whether it's realized in a way that is very narrowly tailored, that often the rich are able to skirt, that poorer people cannot. And look, there is like 150 years of history on tax law and the evolution of the Constitution in terms of how income tax came to be. We can't go through all of that. But what you need to know is that in 1913, they passed an amendment which has always been difficult, specifically to enshrine an income tax and say that that is now beyond challenge. That's a thing that we have. And the text of the amendment says, Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived. That is a very broad statement without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. The latter half of that has to do with how taxes were done before the 16th Amendment. It's not super important at this point. But eventually, progressive reformers did get the 16th Amendment, and that marked, quote, a massive political repudiation of the court's oligarchical constitutionalism, basically saying that now we are going to be able to derive this income in whatever way we want from whatever income you have. So unfortunately to Thomas, the 16th Amendment was barely a footnote. Again, he doesn't respect amendments like he does the regular Constitution. He says that it left everything else in place, including the federalism principles bound up in the direct tax clause. So I read you the amendment. I read how broad it was. He says, no, it's actually super narrow. It doesn't broaden the ability to tax. It in fact narrows it even beyond what was originally established in the Constitution, which is fantastical. That is an insane thing to say, but that's what he's saying, and he's there for the rest of his life. So here is his final trick. The amendment allows taxation of income, quote, from whatever source derived. The word derived, he wrote, is a near synonym for realized. Well, it's not. He's just saying that it is. But do you remember what we were talking about a realization component of income? He's saying, oh no, 110 years ago, they meant it had to be derived, as in realized, we'll say. So it has to be money that actually reaches a person's pockets. And that is the only thing that those progressives who are engaged in a decades-long fight to radically change the income inequality, the distribution of resources and all that, they were actually trying to make sure that lots of different types of wealth couldn't be touched. That is, on its face, absolutely absurd, but that is a trick that he often plays, and he's playing it here. And why does that matter? Well, if you're a regular person and if you're earning income by working a regular job, okay, almost all of your money is gonna come in the form of realized income. It's paid to you, it gets in your pocket, and it can be taxed. The way he wants to do income taxes, that's realized. That's still good, we can take that. But the way that the rich make money, their salary is often a very small percentage of all of the money that they have. If he gets his way, and if in the future, the radical conservative Supreme Court that we have decides that that realization requirement is an actual thing that they can read into the 16th Amendment, then you can no longer tax as income anything passive, investment, a lot of real estate, thousands of different ways that the wealthiest people in the country generate almost all of their income will no longer be accessible by the income tax. Everything you make will be, but they will get away with even more financial murder than they already are right now. And that is such a massive potential gift to the wealthy. It would utterly bankrupt America. That would be the end of our system of government, our society as currently constituted. And in its place, we would have robber barons beyond the wildest fantasies of the millionaires that were living back when the 16th Amendment was originally passed. So there's a lot more here. Definitely check out the piece on Slate. I apologize that it's a little bit wonky, but Sharon, what do you think?
Wonky is the great word for it. First of all, it's so nasty. Remember in May when he accused any criticism of him, he called that nastiness. What you have just chronicled, read through, it's a vile way of thinking. I don't believe he wrote it, but I believe he directed his clerk or whoever, here's what we're doing, and this is the way I'm thinking, and any dissent he's ever put out, that's the case. I used to think that he is someone who just betrayed his upbringing, his community. And then I was open and honest in saying I believe he's betrayed his race. I believe he's betrayed Americans. And at a certain point, I believe he's betraying humanity. He really is. He really is all out for himself, and he doesn't care. He doesn't give a damn about anybody else. As long as he gets that RV and free trips. I liked it better when he just was silent pre-COVID, remember? And then COVID came and he decided he'll talk because it's on the phone because he felt so intimidated otherwise. I just am disgusted. Every newsflash about him is anti-us.
Thankfully, in this case, he did not succeed. But I mean, just imagine Trump gets in, he gets to maybe replace one or two libs. They've got a 7-2, 8-1 majority. They feel emboldened. They can finally pull the trigger on this. You don't think that they will? Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.